Hello. Today, well, first of all, I've been asking what ships you want me to cover, and a lot of people want Hindenburg, a lot of people want Moskva, like the same type of style I did for the Des Moines. So I'm gonna compromise, and I'm just gonna cover them both. So don't worry, just because I'm covering Moskva now doesn't mean I won't also be covering the Hindenburg. Anyways, updated guide on my Moskva. Well, the first thing you notice, we get epicenter, and of course, knowing VG map design, this map is very open, which makes it kind of anti-cruiser friendly. And this is a kind of a deal with a lot of the T10 maps or high tier maps in this game. They are not very cruiser friendly. It's one of my main complaints about this game. They are way too open, and it makes it quite hard to be effective. But on the Moskva, I've actually made some. First of all, I've been experimenting a lot with different builds on my Moskva, and ultimately I've changed my build quite a bit and found a new one that I've been very comfortable with and that I've been enjoying in the current meta quite a lot. I'm of course scrolling in chat as it asks my radar range, and I'm saying it's 6 km because it's an enemy DD that's asking. So anyway, one of the first considerable changes you might see is that my range is actually increased. I have changed from the reload module to the range module. Now, in the past, I really liked the reload module for the aggressive playstyle, and I enjoyed the increased DPM for more close quarters and such. But with the very passive playstyle that I've been seeing, that's become more and more popular as of late, I've decided to actually move over to the range module because it gives you more. These huge open areas like this, I feel it gives me more strength in this, and I can easier keep my distance and still be effective in the ship. So that's a very significant change. I've changed from I've changed 3 million million upgrade module. I've changed it completely to the increased range. Now, of course, this is very standard cruiser play. What I'm showcasing here, I'm kiting away. I'm very angled. I'm kiting away. I want to get behind this cliff so I can become undetected, and I'm picking a main target to HE spam. Of course, I picked the strongest enemy target they have, which is the Izumo. That is by far, out of all the ships I can see, their strongest enemy target. So that's the one I start working on. I'm undetected now, so I park behind the island. I'm just gonna keep spamming this HE. Now, another significant change is also I've changed from Demolition Expert to AFT. Combined with the AA module that you have on your captain, have on your ship, it increases the long range AA to 8.2 km. Now, while I don't really have any planes near me to showcase that right now, having an 8.2 km panic range on your defensive AA is very strong, since it seems like carriers are starting to make a bit of a resurgence, especially with all these missions and stuff that have been quite demanding on it. Seeing as I'm seeing more and more carriers again, this build has become very relevant to me. The Izumo is burning, or well, he's used his damage con, but he looks pretty dead and I have a hard time shooting at him, so I start working on North Carolina instead, trying to make sure I stay in cover the whole time, of course. But yeah, regarding the AFT, so with the AFT and my current build, I got an 8.2 km panic range, which is one of the longest you can get in the game. The only thing that can get any longer is, I think, the Minotaur, but he doesn't have the defensive AA, so he can't actually panic them. But the 8.2 makes you very strong at defending allied ships and spreading out torpedoes and bombs, of course. So those are the two significant changes. Regarding the playstyle, well, I would say I'm playing a bit more careful on the ship, but then again, that has very much to do with the map as well. I like being aggressive, especially with this long-range AA. I like being aggressive on maps where I can and denying like these huge airspaces. But this is one of those T10 maps, well, one of those T10 maps that I really hate, because being a cruiser means there's very little cover available. Like, where can I actually push up with my cruiser on this map? Not really anywhere. The closest thing is these islands next to our spawn, and trying to push up all the way to the enemy islands, well, that's gonna get you killed sailing across that open sea. So, very hard to actually do anything. So instead I'm getting rid of the biggest threats, which are the battleships. In general, the Moskva does extremely well against all enemy cruisers, and pretty well against DDs as well, thanks to, of course, the radar and, of course, the flat shell trajectory. You have pretty much railguns, which means that if you spot a DD, you can wreck them, and enemy DDs tend to know this, so they tend to keep their distance from you. But enemy cruisers, you can see I'm using AP at 15 km range, and because the thing here is of course that these AP shells are extremely heavy, and you got great shell velocity, and they maintain this velocity because they are so heavy, which means the penetration values are great even at long range, as you can see here. Double Citadel, and this New Orleans gets absolutely wrecked at this massive range. This is of course one of the Moskva specialties, maintaining that massive AP pen at almost any range. And combined with the range, he's gonna have a hard time escaping me as long as I can keep him spotted. Now, as I was saying, the biggest threat to Moskva is absolutely and without a doubt battleships. With this build especially, carriers aren't that much of an issue, but battleships are your number one problem, which is of course why at the start, when I saw the 2 battleships, I played it very safe and I burned them down. In fact, looking at my damage, I already got 100k damage. Of course, some of it is New Orleans, but most of it came from just burning down those 2 battleships and getting rid of them. Now that they are gone, now I'm comfortable pushing up and being significantly more aggressive and trying to hunt down these 2 cruisers that are trying to flee. I already know the positions of the 2 DDs have been spotted on the map, so I know they're not around, so there's no reason using my radar or anything. I can just keep pushing up and harassing as much as possible. In general, I want to stay somewhat near to my Yamato, who's in my division, Wistcast, because if the enemy carrier decides to come for him, well, I want to be able to be there to wreck his planes, of course, and a Yamato is naturally a very lucrative or tempting target for an enemy carrier, because the Yamato has a massive impact on the battlefield, but the ship is of course very vulnerable to carrier strikes, hence why I kind of want to stay close to him in case something comes this way. I can be helpful. In this case, this Hipper is so angled, I find it unlikely. I mean, you can actually get citadels from this ridiculous angle. Well, it's actually not that ridiculous, but I'm just gonna keep working on HE. And you can see some of the penetrative HE power of this ship right here, the fact that I'm actually breaking his engine. Now, you might think it's something weird or something uncommon, but you actually break Hipper engines quite often with the HE, because the shells are so heavy and they tend to pen enough and do enough damage that, well, it's fairly common. You kind of treat the Hipper like a DD because these guns are so goddamn big. He's repaired his broken engine, of course, and I break his engine again. As I said, not that uncommon at all. And he must of course hate it. Okay, what is this New Orleans doing? Is this New Orleans really? Oh god, really? So this New Orleans decided he was in such a hurry to like turn across my bow that, well, I could keep going full speed and ramming him, but I don't want him to be forced to show, oh Jesus Christ, forced to show full broadside. I of course apologies. I of course don't want to stay in this position myself, because being immobile in a big ship like this is not very nice with the Yamato around, because, well, Yamato of course doesn't care much about angling or anything. You saw Carrier attempted to go for a Wistcast there, so I just popped defensive AA, and his torpedo plane got instantly shredded. As I said, this is why I wanted to stay close to him at all times, this kind of positioning, so that anytime the carrier even attempts to go for him, he will get shredded. The enemy of course had a midway, so those were midway tier 10 planes that got completely demolished. So it does show you that even though I'm not running manual AA, the AA power is extremely strong. I'm gonna switch to Bismarck now, since that Hipper is in full panic fleeing retreat mode. Using AP since I'm so close. The AP is of course extremely strong, but the Minotaur was briefly spotted now, which makes for a much more interesting target. I shoot one volley before he disappears, but I do have my radar of course, and this is one of the reasons why ships like the Moskva kind of hard counter Royal Navy, or well, Soviet cruisers in general hard counter Royal Navy cruisers, is because of course the long range radar and the extremely heavy AP means that once they stop in their smoke thinking they're safe, you teach them that they are in fact the opposite of safe. Oh, damn it, I ended up eating one. There was quite a lot of torps going there, and I think I was a bit too greedy with dealing damage, so I ate one unnecessary torp, one might say. Sadly, I don't think, is that gonna be enough? No, did not get the kill. Wasn't enough really. The team didn't really understand to fully focus that guy, and killing him alone, unless you get really heavy citadel volleys, is quite difficult because the Minotaur heal is amazing. But it looks like it forced him to move and panic, which is, while his smoke was still active. So now he's gonna take a lot of damage trying to get away from there. I'm trying to break through his stern, since he's giving me a perfect stern angle here. But it turns out the armor can actually bounce your shells from that angle. Learned something new again. But he's gonna turn behind the cliff to get into cover, and that's when I go for his broadside, which most certainly cannot bounce your volleys. Sadly, only one citadel, so he actually gets away alive, which is unfortunate. I do, however, spot the midway, 17 km away. Now, as I said, super heavy shells, much like the Des Moines, except much faster velocity. So at this long range, yes, you can quite easily citadel the midway, and that was a 17k volley on him for this range with AP. Usually you see Moskvas switching to HE when they see carriers, but there's really no need because you can burn them down so incredibly quickly with your AP. This is tough. What do I want to shoot at? Ultimately, I'll choose the midway because he has all his planes lift and he's kind of a huge... The biggest threats here really are the Minotaur and the midway. Not for me, but for my team. Because, well, the midway can kill our Yamato, and the Minotaur, on the other hand, can deny and shoot down all these planes, because the Minotaur is in a division with the midway, which means it's obviously going to be AA spec, so he can protect his entire fleet. It has massive AA range and very strong AA. So my two priorities in this game are absolutely to get rid of the Minotaur or the midway. The Yamato isn't really that big of a deal, since once again I have a Hakuri on my team who can easily deal with him. I pop my radar and I managed to find the Minotaur. Sadly, even though I'm angled, the Yamato wrecks me quite hard, followed by a lot of other shells, but I do finish off the Minotaur, which is exactly what I ultimately wanted. Now, the game doesn't go on much longer than this, since, well, they have a hard time dealing with all the incoming fire. You might definitely say I was a bit over-aggressive towards the end there. I could have played it more passive, but being aggressive has always been my style. Of course, the final score... we won the game, 600k credits, always nice for a T10 game, 225,000 damage. Looking at the team score, we can see just how much base XP it was. Not really that special. I only managed to get 2 kills, lots of kill steals, I'll blame it on that. Never managed to secure the hipper, that ran away from me either. But looking at the time spent in battle, it's only 12 minutes and 30 seconds. So 225k damage in such a short game and on such a cruiser unfriendly map, you might say. This is of course so open, which makes it not that kind to cruisers. I consider it quite a good result. Potential damage 2 million, which is pretty common in the Moskva. You tend to get shot at quite a fair bit. But ultimately, I didn't get my Witherer, but I tend to focus mostly on AP damage in the ship regardless. Anyway, that was my example of how I tend to play my Moskva these days. And since I have changed my build, and it's been so long since I last covered the Moskva build, let me go over that again. Right, since I have changed my build significantly, I'll go over the build part again. Consumable wise, I recommend premium damage control and at least premium heal. If you can afford the other ones, then go for premium radar and defensive AA as well, like I do, but not everyone has the same cash that I do, so you might want to go for cheaper amounts. Upgrade wise, main armaments mod 1, AA guns mod 2, increase that AA range. I use it on pretty much all cruisers. And here's the significant change. I've changed from main battery mod 3, the faster reload, to gunfire control for longer range. Ultimately, I've found that the versatility this gives me, especially in stale open maps that tend to be quite a lot of the T10 maps, I found that having the additional range has made it more comfortable to play the ship than the additional DPM. So that's a significant change. Damage control 1, steering gears mod 2, and concealment system. Now I did try running some AA builds where I ran steering gears, where I completely gave up stealth, but ultimately I didn't really like it because when you give up the stealth, you just become so incredibly visible on the ship. Captain perks wise, basics of survivability, expert marksman, superintendent, you can see all the consumable it gives you, very important. And here's another change. I've changed from demolition expert to AFT. This is kind of a compromise I've chosen between switching builds quite a lot, and ultimately I decided I want the AFT to boost that AA range to 8.2 km. And finally, concealment expert and vigilance as the last 18 point. Now there is a build that I ran that I tested quite a bit, which is the 3x4, where you get demolition expert, AFT, and manual AA. Now this, not only with the AA module on your ship, this boosts your AA range to this ridiculous 8.2 km that I have now, but you also have manual AA boosting that damage, so you absolutely shred planes at the 8.2 km range. But I found that when you give up the stealth, you kind of have to get the rudder shift, and then you have no stealth at all. Your concealment becomes 17.5 instead of the 13.8 I have now, and you just have to play so incredibly passive that it becomes painful. So this is kind of my compromise, where I give up demolition expert for AFT. You still have a fairly good fire chance, as you saw, but your AA range and AA power still becomes quite a bit stronger. So this is my new build for the Moskva that I've been using quite a bit lately, and I've really been enjoying it. I get some more AA range, some more main gun range, and I really like it. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed my Moskva commentary. I'll speak to you guys later.